If you are planning a visit to Glacier National Park in 2023, you have come to the right place. Glacier National Park has implemented quite a few changes in the last few years, and 2023 is no exception. So I am going to quickly try to go through those changes, along with everything else that you might need to know for your visit, from hiking to biking to camping, food storage, and so on. I am Janet with Radiant Realty, your Montana realtor. I absolutely love where I live, and I love sharing that with other people and helping them enjoy it as well. That said, if you are looking to buy or sell a property or home here in Montana, definitely reach out. I would love to hear more about your needs. And if you are new to the channel, welcome. Please do hit that subscribe button and stay a while, and don't be shy. I love reading your comments and answering any questions that you might have. Also, if you find anything in here helpful, please give a big thumbs up. It really helps me out. All right, so let's just dive right into vehicle reservations, because that is one of the biggest changes that they have implemented at Glacier National Park, and 2023 is no exception. They are not done making those changes yet. So let's take a look at what's new in 2023. Okay, so priority one for your visit is securing a vehicle reservation. And last year, in the year prior, vehicle reservations were only required for going to the Sun Road and the North Fork area. This year, it is also required for the Two Medicine and many glacier areas as well. And I believe that begins May 26th and goes all the way through September 10th. However, just to make it a little bit more confusing, if you're heading from east to west, so entering through the St. Mary entrance going to the Sun Road, you don't need a vehicle pass until July 1st for those. And the vehicle passes are required from 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. each day. So if you don't have a vehicle pass, that is one way that you can still get into the park without one. You need to show up before 6 a.m. or arrive after 3 p.m. And you know what? It stays light late here in the summer in Montana. So don't despair if you don't have one. They release these in blocks in advance. I believe the next one comes out April 1st, and that is the whole August block. And then May 1st would be for the September 1 through 10. The previous months have already been released, but then they'll also do rolling blocks that are released at 8 a.m. the day before. It's also a little bit confusing because the going to the Sun Road West entrance and the Camas entrance reservations are good for 3 days, whereas the Two Medicine, Many Glacier, and North Fork reservations are only good for 1 day. So you definitely, I'm going to post links to these websites below so you can just review all of this information, make some notes so that you're clear, because the way they're doing it this year could get pretty confusing pretty quickly. So nps.gov is the best place to go for just park information, Glacier National Park information. But for the reservations, you actually need to go to recreation.gov or download the app. The app is pretty easy to use, and I feel like it's much quicker. So I highly recommend getting the app. So vehicle reservations on recreation.gov, they're only $2. So it's not about the money, it's about making that reservation. Now, the vehicle reservation is not your Glacier National Park entry pass, and the entry pass is not your vehicle reservation, so don't get confused here. The entry pass is what you're going to pay when you enter the park, unless you already bought it in advance, and that can be for the week or for, I think they have a 3-day one. You could have it for the year, an annual pass, and then there's also an annual national park pass that gets you into more than one of the national parks. So that is the delineation there. Now, like I said, if you don't have a vehicle reservation, don't despair. You can still get into the park before 6 a.m. or after 3 p.m. Also, if you have another reservation in the park, this counts as your vehicle reservation. So if you have booked lodging or camping or horseback riding, a red bus tour, a guided hike, anything of that nature that gets you into the park, that is your vehicle reservation for that portion of the park on the day or days that you have that reservation. And just a few more things of note here before I move on to the next category. So if you are entering on the east side of going to the Sun Road, the St. Mary entrance, your vehicle reservation isn't actually checked until Rising Sun checkpoint. And then, so you can access the St. Mary Visitor Center without that, and then also the free shuttle service. So if you don't have a vehicle reservation, I believe park at the St. Mary Visitor Center and then take the free shuttle into the park as well. Also of note, if you do not have a vehicle reservation and you're trying to get into the park before 6 a.m. on the west side of going to the Sun Road, they anticipate construction and that you will not be able to do that. So plan accordingly, check the website. We'll get into that a little bit more down in road closures, transportation, and fueling. So if you've started falling asleep in this video, this is time to wake up. This is a major thing. So they are suggesting on the website that you actually go all the way around to the east entrance, the St. Mary entrance, enter there for reservations at Avalanche. That is just a big fat not worth it to me as a local. However, if you're coming from another state or flying in for this, you just need to plan accordingly. That's going to take a lot more time. And a lot of people that are not from Montana get confused, and they call the park and they ask, why are you doing road construction during the busiest season? I hope this picture from the Facebook page helps you understand. There is so much snow up there throughout the other parts of the year. They have to do it during the summer, so you're just going to have to bring your patience. Also of note, just because you have a vehicle reservation does not mean there'll be parking for you. Parking gets super congested, so bring your patience for that as well. You might need to circle around parking lots a lot or park further down and walk. Also of note, vehicle reservations are not required. This makes sense if you are entering by foot or by bike. We'll get into that further later with hiking and biking. They're also not required for tribal members, and they're not required if you live inside of the park, if you have your residence there, for those that live in the residence and their guests. All right, let's move on to the next one. Okay, so let's move on to backcountry camping and wilderness permits. So in the past, I would see people lined up for these on the day of in APGAR, but this year, 70% of these are released in advance, March 15th to be exact. Those permits are good for 1 to 4. If you have 5 to 8, you're going to need to get 2 permits and have 2 group leaders. 9 to 12, 3 permits and 3 group leaders. For those larger groups, they're actually released March 1st, and you could also go to another site called pay.gov to reserve those. So definitely, I'll put the link below if you want more details on that. If you did not get in that 70% release, they still have 30% of the permits available for walk-up reservations. So do not despair there either, although I'm sure that there is going to be a lot of people vying for those. Also, with the backcountry, those are limited to 16 miles a day, so just know that when you're doing your planning. And then also for food storage, those are required. You're required to either have it in a bag and pull it up, so it's way up on the poles that they provide, or have a bear-proof container that you're storing your food in. Okay, and this again, another time to wake up. This is super important. Your reservation or your reserve permit, that's not your actual permit. So you have to go to the wilderness permit issuing station within the park when you get there, either the day before or the day of. And if you don't show up the day of by 4 p.m., they cancel your reservation altogether. So make sure you stop by that permitting office in the park once you get there and pick up that permit so you have it in hand and it doesn't get canceled on you. Okay, so let's move on to directions, transportation, road conditions, and fuel. So make sure, I'll put a link below to this as well, but make sure you pull up a park map, familiarize yourself with the roads. They don't all connect. There's a lot of wilderness area without any road access, and it's really going to help you out to know what that looks like before you get here. Also, fueling. There are no fueling stations within the park boundaries. So there is one in APGAR before you enter the west entrance. There's one in St. Mary before you enter. There is one near to Medicine. However, we have almost ran out of gas here before because we went later in the season and it wasn't even open anymore. I believe that was September or October and they were already closed for the season. So definitely check the hours, seasons, and times and locations of the fueling stations before you arrive. And as I mentioned previously, parking fills quickly, so oftentimes by mid-morning, early morning, the parking lots are already full. So either get there early or bring your patience. Okay, so let's move on to camping now. Not backcountry camping, but front country. So if you don't already have a reservation, you can pull up, and I'll link that below as well. They have fill times listed for each individual campground, so you have at least a general idea of what time you need to get there if you are arriving on a first come first served basis. I highly recommend making reservations in advance if you can. If you get on and they're full, keep checking back, because sometimes people cancel and you lug out and you get them. If it says primitive, it does not have flush toilets or potable water. No water, what am I gonna do? So a lot of them, there's one, we absolutely love the Cut Bank one, and it doesn't, but it has a stream. So if you have the water filters, you can go down and get your own water and filter it yourself. And then, flush toilets, well, a lot of places in Glacier do not have flush toilets, so just be prepared for that when you're on hikes and other things. It's more like kind of like an outhouse. Oh, and then food storage while camping. So even in the front country campsites, you need to keep your food stowed away. So unless you are actively cooking it or eating it, it needs to be either locked up in a car, in a camper with hard sides, not a soft-sided camper. They also have food storage metal bins at the campsite, so you could put them in there. They have bear-proof trash cans, so make sure all your trash ends up in that. I even saw last year when we hiked Avalanche. We hiked to Avalanche Lake, and we came back and the truck had a ticket because they had a cooler in the back of the truck bed. Not allowed. All food needs to be, so that cooler should have been put inside the truck cab and closed in while they went on their hike. Okay, so let's quickly move on to hiking. I'll just touch on this briefly. So many of the higher elevation trails are not snow-free until mid-July. So you could get started on it and there could be snow. You could encounter it. So just be prepared. If you don't feel comfortable, turn around and go back. I know we did the Hidden Lake hike that is up by Logan Pass pretty early season, and it was a little scary in parts with the snow and then the incline down. And I mean, we all kind of made it, but just be very careful and don't attempt something that you don't feel qualified to go over. Okay, another thing with hiking is that weather conditions change a lot up there, so they could change. Even if a hike is open, it could be closed again the next day or the next week, so just pay attention to the trail status maps. I'll post a link to that below as well, and just be checking those actively before you go on your hike. And if you aren't comfortable doing some of those longer hikes on your own, there are ranger-led hikes. I think they probably fill up quickly, but you can check the website for that and make those reservations as well below. All right, so let's move on to biking. There is a fee to enter the park, even for bikers, so definitely check that out. E-bikes are allowed in the park. Often when we bike going to the Sun Road before it's open to vehicles, one of my favorite things to do, by the way. I have 2 videos on it, not just one. You can check that out, but I never have rented an e-bike, but it looks amazing because those people just whiz right by you while you're just like, oh, okay, I'm gonna make it up this hill. So I highly recommend that if you have that available option. And then if you are biking when it is open to vehicles, you need to ride single file, and also you need to pull off into the pull-offs, like kind of the cutouts that they have every now and then if you have 4 or more vehicles backed up behind you. These are the rules on the website. I'm also going to quickly go through, they have a whole list. I'm going to quickly read just a few more of those for you that I found important. Drivers are often distracted by scenery in the park, so ride defensively. Honestly, I feel like riding on going to the Sun Road when vehicles around there is taking your life in your own hands. So they're not kidding there. The road is very skinny and drivers are looking and gawking because it's absolutely gorgeous. It's one of the most beautiful roads to drive. So just be very careful. Bring a headlamp if biking in early morning, late afternoon, or evening. Never leave food unattended, including in bicycle panniers and backpacks. So same goes for the food here. They just really want to keep food away from the wildlife, the bears. None of Glacier's roads have bicycle lanes or shoulders. This is what I was saying. Wear high visibility clothing and protective equipment. Make sure to carry and understand how to use bear spray and understand the do's and don'ts of wildlife encounters. Always let an outside party know where you are going and have it check in with you when you get back safely. There are many hazards on the bicycling route, such as vehicle collisions, wildlife, rockfall, and avalanches. So just be smart and be prepared, and you should have a great time. Okay, and then also for bikers, there are peak season route restrictions that you need to be aware of as well, so check the website for those. And then this is something that I was not aware of, which is really quite neat. They have hiking and biker campsites, I guess, not campgrounds. So Apgar, Fish Creek, Sprague Creek, and St. Mary have some campsites reserved just for hikers and bikers. It sounds like they put 8 per site, so you might be with other people that you don't know, which could be kind of fun, get to know other people. And it's $5 to $8 per night, depending on which site you're at. So that's something as well if you are planning on hiking or biking through the park to check out. And next up is shuttles. Like I said at the beginning, there are free shuttles throughout the park, so take advantage of those. Smoking is prohibited, pets are prohibited on them. They are wheelchair accessible, and most of them do have bike racks, so if you're biking and need just a ride from here to there, that's a great option for you. So there is a shuttle stop map, which you probably see on the screen right now, but I will also post a link to that as well in the description box below. Okay, and let's touch briefly on safety. I have a whole nother video dedicated to safety. It was actually one of the Glacier National Park papers that came up with the top 9 hazards in the park that I went through real quick, so I will link that at the end of this video. But just for a quick recap, hypothermia, ice, slipping, falling, wildlife, things to be aware of. So definitely check that video out as well. Also, I think people get used to kind of Disney World, Disneyland. We have a lot of safety precautions that need to be followed at amusement parks, things like that in the US. However, to keep the natural spaces natural, there's a surprising amount of areas where you can just fall off, or if kids are running ahead, they can just fall into a waterfall or something like that. So definitely check that video out and be aware before you come. Okay, so let's move on to fishing. You don't need a fishing license to fish in Glacier National Park, which is really nice. But I'm gonna go ahead and read just a few of the regulations from their website for you. It says, no bull trout may be retained. Any caught incidentally must be handled carefully and immediately released. You should wet your hands with lake, river, stream water before handling fish. Fish consumption advisory. If you plan on keeping fish to eat, please check the fish consumption guidelines. All native fish caught must be released. There is no daily catch or possession limit on non-native fish species in the park, and fishing is allowed by hook and line only. Use of only 1 rod per person is permitted. Okay, and then let's quickly touch on boating here. The main thing I want to point out is that you have to have an inspection, even if it's just a kayak or a paddleboard, a motorized boat. Anything needs to be inspected for invasive species. So check again the link in the description box below for those regulations for the type of boating equipment that you have. It is fantastic to boat in the park. It's absolutely gorgeous, highly recommend it, but make sure you know the rules and regulations before showing up with your equipment. Okay, and then let's quickly touch on pets. I know a dog is a man's best friend. And you can bring pets to Glacier National Park in the front country campsites, in boats. If you have boats out on the water, you can have a pet there, but they can't make unreasonable noise. You do need to pick up after them. They need to be leashed or in a cage. They can't just be in an open truck bed, and they're not really allowed on any of the hikes. So for me, it's not really worth it to bring a pet into the park because I want to go hiking and I'm not just going to leave them shut up in a car or a camper all day. So that is entirely up to you. I have seen them before, you know, the Lake McDonald Lakeshore, and they have a grand old time fetching or whatever, but just be aware of where they can and cannot go. Okay, I know that was a lot, but again, I will leave a link to the website below, nps.gov and recreation.gov. If you have further questions, you can also leave a comment below. I'd be happy to read that and try to answer that for you. Have an amazing week. Hit that notification bell so you get notified when new videos drop. Don't forget to give a big thumbs up, and I will see you next time.